definitely say like my first two menus I wasn't super happy with. And at first I was frustrated because I feel like in myself, I'm capable of doing really cool things and I know enough to do really cool things. But the limitations started to bother me until I figured out what it is I need to do. When we talked about small but mighty, I think that idea of like limitations can be freeing because there's the metaphor of like the basketball field where the basketball court where like the court is only so big, but once you know it intimately, you know exactly every step you can take on that court, you know? And I think that is almost freeing because of the limitations that we have and how small the space is. I know it so intimately now. So now I get to play in my own court to the best of my ability, you know? And I think a lot of the times that I have issues with when I go to other places, and I don't want to critique anyone, but the idea that they have access to some of the best equipment, they have everything, they can be as broad as they want to be, but I think that loses sight of what the simplicity and the beauty of things can be. And so we try to stick to the simplicity. And I always want to celebrate the simplicity of what food is and also the accessibility of it all. Because again, for most people, food is necessity. And I never want to box people out of an experience. And I think that is what also plays into what Apero is that even though wine is this very adult, serious experience, and you need to know a certain amount of things before you even step in the door, or else you feel like you're gonna look like an idiot. When you give that invitation of, no, this is actually, we're gonna make this so simple and so inviting and so creative that you get to be a part of the process for, that you don't feel any of that fear. And it's the same thing with, you know, the food that we do. And everything is intentionally meant to go with the wine, but it's never in an atmosphere or to a certain echelon that you feel like you have to come in button down shirt and, you know, coattails on, you know. It's just, you're just here to have a good time. You're here to have good food, drink good wine, and enjoy the space. And so that's why we were talking about this next menu. I'm so excited because I've now figured out to what levels I could reach wall to wall now, and I know the space, and I know what we can do, and I know what won't break us when we do it, and the things that will elevate us when we do it. So, yeah, it was a huge learning curve, and honestly, I'm grateful for it because, you know, pressure makes diamonds, and I come from a family of very hardworking people, you know. Everyone in my family, they worked, you know, my grandmother worked in a factory, my grandfather did quality control stuff for Harley-Davidson, and my mom's worked, you know, every day of her life, you know, single mother with a kid. And so I've seen what that looks like. And so I've just put myself in their shoes and say, okay, that's where I come from, so I know I can do it, you know? And so I just put my head in it and eventually learn to put my soul in it and put my heart in it. My favorite food we talked about is like stuff that your grandma made, you know? My favorite food ever, and I remember the first time we did like an Apero in-house dinner party here, I kept it stupid simple, and I was like, I just want well-brined chicken roasted really well with potatoes and like a tiramisu, and I just want it to be the basics because to me, that is where food really comes from. It comes from family. It comes from necessity for most people. You know, I think for the average American or the average immigrant, the average person around the world, food largely comes out of necessity. And when you are doing anything out of necessity, you don't have access to everything you need all the time, but you find ways. And I think so much of being a chef is really finding solutions to creative problems. And so getting a chance to get back there and see I had all these creative problems and finding creative solutions, but also getting to the root of what food is to me. And this celebration of the basics is everything. It can be elevated and you can do the fine tuning on the little parts, but at the end of the day, it's a roast beef sandwich. Like, you know, at the end of the day, it's fried potatoes in a pan. At the end of the day, it's cured meat on a board and cheese, something archaic even, you know, on a piece of wood. Like, don't make it more complicated than it is. And when you see it for the simplicity that what food really is, I think that's when you realize, like, okay, this limitation is not actually a limitation. It's a playground.